The voice came through the static like a ghost. "Guardian, you still with me?" Master Sergeant Kate Brennan pressed her body flat against the Kandahar dust, sweat mixing with blood inside her blast suit. The November sun hammered down at 112 degrees, but that wasn't what made her hands shake as she reached for the wire cutters. "Still here, Jake. Talk to me." Sergeant Jake Morrison's voice crackled through the radio, 30 feet away at the second device. They'd been partners for 3 years, 4 deployments, 647 IED disposals between them. Jake was the best, steady hands, sharp mind, a wife and daughter waiting back home in North Carolina. "Device Alpha is clear, moving to Bravo now. You good on Charlie?" Kate stared at the improvised explosive device in front of her. Iranian design, triple wire configuration. The kind that separated the living from the dead based on which color you cut first. Blue, red, or yellow. Choose wrong and the convoy waiting 300 yards behind them would be picking up pieces. "Charlie's tricky. Give me 5 minutes." "Roger that. But Kate, we're burning daylight. Medevac's got 3 Marines bleeding out. They need this route clear." Her fingers touched the blue wire. No. The red one. No. Her training screamed at her to slow down, but Jake was right. Somewhere behind them, 3 Marines were dying while she tried to figure out which wire wouldn't blow her across the desert. "Jake, I need you to check something for me. Does your Bravo device have a secondary pressure plate?" Silence. Too long, then Jake's voice came back different, quieter. "Kate, I've got a problem." The words every EOD tech dreaded. "Talk to me, brother." "There's a pressure release under my left foot. I didn't see it. If I move, we both go up. If I stay, you can't finish your device and the convoy's stuck." Kate felt the world narrow to a single point. The mission. The Marines, Jake's life. Her life. All balanced on the edge of a wire that might be blue or might be red or might be the wrong question entirely. "Stay still. I'm coming to you." "Negative, Guardian. Finish Charlie. That's an order." "Jake, I can get you out. I just need to see the mechanism. I can disable it remotely. Then we both walk away and tell this story over that beer you owe me." A sound came through the radio. It might have been a laugh. It might have been something else. "Kate, listen to me. If this goes wrong, if I don't make it, you tell Emma her dad tried. You tell her every day of her life that her dad tried to make the world safer for her. You promise me." Kate's hands weren't shaking anymore. They were stone. "You'll tell her yourself." She turned back to her device. Blue wire, red wire, yellow wire, 3 choices, 1 chance. She reached for the blue one, then stopped. Something Jake had taught her in Baghdad. Iranian bomb makers were artists. They signed their work. This one had a signature she recognized. The yellow wire was the decoy. Red wire was the trigger. Blue wire was the path home. She cut the blue wire. The device went dead. Charlie clear. She was already running toward Jake when the world ended in fire and thunder. The third device, the one nobody saw. Remote detonated. Jake Morrison took the blast center mass while Kate was still 10 feet away. She was thrown backward, slammed into a wall that didn't exist, ears ringing, vision white. When she could see again, she was crawling. Crawling through smoke. Crawling through dust. Crawling toward the shape that had been her partner, her brother, her friend. Jake was on his back, staring at the sky with eyes that didn't see anything anymore. His lips were moving. Kate got close enough to hear. "Did you clear route?" "Route's clear, Jake. Medevac can roll." "Good. Tell Emma. Tell her." He died before the sentence finished. Died with words for his daughter trapped in his throat. Died while Kate held his hand and felt her own blood running down her arm from shrapnel she hadn't noticed taking. The last thing Kate remembered before the blackness took her was her right hand. It was shaking, trembling like it had never done in 13 years of military service. It hasn't stopped shaking since. Present day, the haunted, 5:30 in the morning, 6 years later. Kate Brennan woke up screaming. The alarm on her nightstand was beeping, had been beeping for who knows how long, but Kate didn't hear it over the sound of Jake's voice saying, "Tell Emma, tell Emma, tell Emma," on an endless loop in her head. She reached out to silence the alarm and watched her hand shake so badly it took 4 tries to hit the button. The tremor was worse in the mornings, worse after the nightmares, worse always. The apartment around her was dark and small and temporary, in the way that said the person living here didn't plan to stay long or didn't believe they deserved better. Probably both. 1 bedroom, kitchenette, bathroom with a mirror Kate avoided looking into. The kind of place that rented by the month to people who had nowhere else to go. She sat on the edge of the bed, waiting for her breathing to slow down, waiting for the Afghanistan dust to clear from her lungs even though the dust was never real, just memory given weight by guilt and time and the particular kind of pain that comes from surviving when someone else didn't. On the dresser, 3 photographs in cheap frames. The first showed Kate in dress uniform, younger, whole, receiving a Bronze Star from Colonel Harrison, while Jake stood in the background grinning like he'd won it himself. The second showed Jake and his daughter Emma at the beach, the little girl maybe 7 years old, laughing as her father lifted her onto his shoulders. The third showed Kate's own daughter, Emily, on her wedding day 2 years ago. Kate wasn't in the photo. She hadn't been invited. Next to the photos, her phone was lighting up with notifications. Kate picked it up with both hands to keep from dropping it and saw a message from Emily posted publicly on Facebook. Big news! My husband and I are so excited to announce we're expecting our first child this June. We can't wait to meet our little one and start this new chapter of our lives. 247 comments below. Friends congratulating. Family members celebrating. Kate scrolled through all of them, looking for one word, one acknowledgement that this baby would have a grandmother, that Emily still remembered Kate existed. Nothing. Not even a tag. Not even a mention. Just my husband and I, as if Emily had been immaculately conceived and raised herself into the strong, beautiful, successful woman she'd become, despite having a mother who'd chosen the Army over her own daughter again and again and again. Kate's thumb hovered over the comment box. What could she say? Congratulations? I'm so proud of you. I wish I could be there. All true, all impossible. All words that would sound hollow coming from a woman who'd missed the first day of kindergarten because of deployment, missed the middle school graduation because of recovery from surgery, missed the wedding because Emily had made it clear that Kate showing up in uniform or out of it would ruin the happiest day of her life. The phone rang in her hands. Unknown number. Kate almost didn't answer, but 6 years of civilian life hadn't killed the military instinct that said when the phone rings at 5:30 in the morning, someone needs something. This is Kate. Mom? The world stopped. Emily, calling her. For the first time in 5 years, Emily's voice on the other end of a phone line that Kate had thought was dead forever. Emily? Sweetheart, is everything okay? I saw the news, Fort Bragg. They're saying there was an explosion. Possible fatalities. And I know you work there, and Emily's voice broke. I needed to know you weren't dead. Kate felt something crack open in her chest. Her daughter still cared. After everything. After all the ways Kate had failed her. After the years of silence and the wedding invitation that never came. Emily had seen news about Fort Bragg and thought of her mother and needed to know she was alive. I'm okay, baby. I'm safe. There was no explosion. Everything's fine. You're sure? Because the news said, I'm sure. I promise. I'm sitting in my apartment right now looking at your wedding photo. You looked so beautiful that day. Silence on the other end. Then Emily's voice quieter, carrying the weight of years of hurt. You weren't there. I know. You weren't there for anything, Mom. Not my graduation. Not my college move-in. Not when Dad died from cancer and I was 9 years old and needed my mother, but you were in Iraq saving strangers. Each word landed like shrapnel. True, all of it true. Emily, I know I failed you. I know I chose wrong. I chose the mission over you because I thought saving other people's daughters would make up for not being there for my own. But it didn't. It just left me with 2 people I couldn't save. You and Jake. Who's Jake? Kate closed her eyes. Someone I lost. Someone who had a daughter named Emma, who's probably your age now, and who I was supposed to tell that her father tried. That he died trying to make the world safe for her. But I never did. I couldn't face her. Couldn't look into her eyes and see the daughter who lost her father because I cut the wrong wire or made the wrong call or wasn't good enough to save him. Mom, you're not making sense. I'm sorry for all of it. For leaving you, for missing everything that mattered, for being the kind of mother who cares more about strangers than her own child. Emily was crying now. Kate could hear it through the phone. I'm pregnant, Mom. I'm going to be a mother, and I'm terrified because the only example I have is you, and you left me. The words should have hurt worse than any IED blast. Instead, they felt like something breaking open that needed to break. Truth spoken out loud after years of silence. Then be better than me, Kate said. Be there, be present. Love your child more than any mission or duty or uniform. And if you ever need help, if you ever need someone to show you what not to do, I'm here. I'll always be here, even if you don't want me. I do want you." The words came out so quietly Kate almost missed them. "I've always wanted you. I just didn't know how to say it after so many years of you not being there. Can I meet the baby when it comes?" "Mom, I don't know. Let me think about it. This is all so much." "Of course. Take your time. I'll be here whenever you're ready. I promise." They said goodbye. Emily hung up first. Kate sat holding the dead phone and realized she was smiling for the first time in longer than she could remember. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was a door that had been locked for 5 years cracking open just enough to let light through. The old voicemail from a year ago was still saved in her phone. Kate played it one more time. Emily's voice, hard and final. "Mom, I'm getting married next month. I know you won't come. You never do. But I wanted you to know I don't need you anymore. I have a family now, people who show up." That voicemail had almost killed Kate, had sent her to the liquor store where she'd stood in the aisle for 20 minutes holding a bottle of whiskey before finally calling her AA sponsor instead of the cashier. 3 years sober now, 3 years of morning meetings and coffee that tasted like cardboard, and admitting to rooms full of strangers that, yes, she was an alcoholic, and yes, every day was still a fight not to drown the memories in amber liquid that promised forgetfulness and delivered only more shame. Kate opened her medicine cabinet, pills lined up like ammunition, gabapentin for nerve pain, trazodone for the nightmares that never quite stopped. Behind them, pushed to the back, was the empty bottle she kept as a reminder. Whiskey-colored plastic, white cap. The last time she'd filled it was the night before Jake's funeral 6 years ago. Next to the empty bottle sat a bronze coin, AA 3-year chip. Some mornings this coin felt heavier than the bronze star they'd given her for valor. Shower, coffee, the Ford truck that had seen better decades, the drive to Fort Bragg through the gray dawn, all of it mechanical, all of it routine, all of it a life of Kate Brennan, 54 years old, civilian contractor, quality control inspector at an ammunition plant, nobody special, nobody important, nobody worth a second glance. That was the point. That was the plan. Disappear into the machinery and maybe finally find peace in being ordinary. Fort Bragg, the mask. The security guard at the main gate looked about 20 years old and bored with existence. He took Kate's ID card without making eye contact and scanned it with the enthusiasm of someone who'd performed this action 10,000 times and expected to perform it 10,000 more before retirement or death, whichever came first. Purpose of visit? Work, quality control. The guard glanced at his screen, then at Kate, then back at the screen as if trying to reconcile the tired woman in front of him with whatever the computer said about her clearance level. Something flickered in his expression, confusion maybe, or recognition that the access codes attached to her ID were higher than a civilian contractor should have. But he was 20 and bored, and it was 6:45 in the morning, so he just handed back the card and waved her through without comment. No salute, no acknowledgement. Just another day, another car, another face that meant nothing. The parking lot of Building C was already filling up with trucks and sedans that all looked exactly like Kate's. American-made, a decade past prime, maintained just well enough to keep running but not well enough to suggest prosperity. The vehicles of people who worked with their hands and collected paychecks that were adequate but never quite enough. Kate pulled into a spot far from the building entrance. Old habit from combat zones where parking close to structures was how you got killed by car bombs. The habit had outlived its usefulness, but habits formed under fire had a way of burrowing deep into the nervous system and staying there. Master Chief William Thompson was getting out of his truck 3 spaces over. Late 50s Navy veteran, the kind of man whose posture said military even in civilian clothes. He wore the same contractor polo shirt as Kate, but on him it looked like a disguise that couldn't quite hide what he really was. Their eyes met. Thompson nodded. Small gesture, but it carried weight that civilians wouldn't understand. The recognition between people who'd served in the places where service cost more than just time. "Morning, Master Sergeant." Kate stopped walking, looked at him. Thompson's face was neutral, but his eyes held something Kate had been trying to avoid for 6 months. Recognition. "I'm civilian now, Chief." Thompson's smile was sad in the way that suggested he'd had this same conversation with himself. Once EOD, always EOD, ma'am. Kate wanted to deny it, wanted to say she wasn't Master Sergeant Brennan anymore, wasn't Guardian, wasn't the woman who'd defused 847 bombs in 13 years of service. She was just Kate, broke, broken, barely holding together Kate, who worked away quality control and went to AA meetings and tried not to think about the fact that her hands would never stop shaking. But Thompson was already holding the door open, and some lies were too exhausting to maintain at 6:45 in the morning. Building C smelled like every military facility Kate had ever worked in. Machine oil and cleaning solvents and something metallic that might have been cordite, or might have been blood, or might have been nothing except the smell of places where violence was manufactured for export. The morning briefing was scheduled for 0700. Kate made her way to the assembly area where the day shift gathered to receive orders and safety briefings and the kind of motivational speeches that were supposed to make people excited about another day handling explosives. Staff Sergeant Marcus Davidson was already there, holding court with his team of EOD specialists. Mid-30s, fit in a way that spoke of gym time more than field time, confident in the way of men who'd trained extensively but never had their training tested under conditions where mistakes meant body bags. Kate had learned his story through 6 months of observation. Good soldier. Top marks at Eglin EOD school. Extensive knowledge of render-safe procedures. But Marcus Davidson had never deployed. Budget cuts and timing and the particular kind of luck that keeps some soldiers safe while sending others into the dark had left him stateside his entire career. His father, though, his father had been Vietnam, had come home with PTSD and nightmares and a drinking problem that eventually killed him 2 years ago. Kate knew because she'd overheard Marcus talking about it once. Voice full of anger and shame in equal measure. Anger at a father who couldn't be the hero Marcus needed. Shame at resenting a man for being damaged by war. "Listen up," Marcus called out as personnel assembled in loose formation. "Full production day today. Quality control will handle administrative reviews. EOD will manage live ordnance testing. We have real bomb technicians to do the dangerous work, so the paper pushers can stick to what they know." The comment floated out to the assembled group without specific target, but several pairs of eyes drifted toward Kate, the new civilian contractor with the shaking hands who handled clipboards instead of explosives, the one who was obviously too old and too damaged to be trusted with anything important. Kate kept her face neutral. This was the price of anonymity. Let them think she was weak. Let them think she was incompetent. Better that than having them know the truth and expecting her to be someone she couldn't be anymore. Marcus continued with assignments. Specialist Ryan Cooper, 23 and eager to prove himself, would assist with timing device calibrations. Sergeant Lisa Park would oversee the welding station. Thompson would maintain communications and emergency protocols. And Kate would review humidity logs in the storage areas, because that's what civilian contractors did. The formation broke up. Personnel moved to assigned stations with the practiced efficiency of people who'd done this dance many times before. Kate collected her clipboard and safety checklist from the supply station and started toward the east wing where the storage areas needed daily inspection. The walk took her past the EOD testing area where Marcus and his team were setting up the day's training scenarios. A table held various types of military ordnance, practice rounds, dummy grenades, inert explosive samples used for certification and education. Specialist Cooper was arranging the items with careful precision. His movements were textbook perfect, which meant they were also slightly inefficient. Training taught the right way. Experience taught the fast way. Cooper had training but not experience, which left him careful and slow and vulnerable in ways he didn't realize yet. Kate watched him position an M67 fragmentation grenade training model too close to the table edge. Watched him handle the Claymore mine practice version with a grip that was too tight, suggesting nervousness. Watched him place the C4 sample without checking the temperature label that would tell him if it had been stored properly. Small mistakes. Mistakes that didn't matter in a training environment. Mistakes that got people killed in the field. Kate forced herself to keep walking. Not her job, not her place. She was here to check humidity levels and sign paperwork. That was the deal she'd made with herself. Contribute without expectations. Serve without responsibility. Exist without the crushing weight of knowing that people lived or died based on whether she got it right. The C4 storage area was maintained at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, according to the digital display. Kate noted the temperature on her checklist, then checked the humidity gauge, 69%. Her pen stopped moving. Military specification for C4 storage was clear as scripture. Maximum humidity of 65% at current temperature. Above that threshold, condensation could form on the explosive compound. Condensation meant moisture penetration. Moisture meant potential instability. Nothing immediately dangerous, but a trend in the wrong direction. Kate double-checked the reading. Still 69%. She looked at the ventilation system. Air circulation was below the rate specified in the technical manual. Not by much, just enough that someone who wasn't looking carefully would miss it. She documented everything with the precision that had kept her alive through 4 tours. Timestamp, location, readings, reference to technical manual specification. Then she carried her clipboard toward the main production floor where Marcus was demonstrating timing device programming to Cooper and 2 other junior specialists. Marcus was in his element, teacher mode, expert mode, the person who knew things explaining to people who needed to learn. "This is a Mark 7 electronic timer," he said, holding up a device the size of a smartphone. "Military standard for controlled demolitions. You program the delay, connect it to primary charge, and hope your math is right because you only get 1 shot at this." He demonstrated the programming sequence with smooth efficiency, temperature compensation, barometric adjustment, fail-safe protocols. All the systems that made modern explosives safer but couldn't quite eliminate the human element where mistakes still happened. Kate waited until he finished before approaching. Professional courtesy, also self-preservation. Men like Marcus didn't appreciate being interrupted during their expert moments. "Sergeant Davidson, I need to report a safety concern." Marcus looked up from the timing device, and Kate saw the flash of irritation before he covered it with professional courtesy. "What's the issue, Ms. Brennan?" "Ms. Brennan." Not Kate, not Master Sergeant, just the formal distance of someone who hadn't earned first-name privileges. "The C4 storage area is reading 69% humidity. Specification calls for maximum 65 at current temperature. Additionally, ventilation is below manual requirements." Marcus glanced at Cooper, then back to Kate. "Is it within acceptable parameters?" "Yes, but barely. If the trend continues, we'll exceed safe storage limits within 4 to 6 hours. Ms. Brennan, if it's within parameters, it's safe. That's why we have parameters. We don't evacuate buildings because readings are at 95% of maximum." Kate felt the familiar frustration rising. He wasn't wrong exactly. Parameters existed for a reason. But parameters were written by people who'd never watched a friend die because someone assumed close enough was good enough. "Sergeant, with respect, the trend suggests equipment malfunction. The humidity shouldn't be rising during normal operations. Something's wrong with the environmental controls." Marcus set down the timing device and gave Kate his full attention. Not the good kind, the kind that suggested he was reassessing his initial impression and finding it confirmed. "Ms. Brennan, I appreciate your thoroughness. I really do. But EOD handles explosive safety. Quality control handles paperwork. Those are the lanes. Stay in yours." It was dismissal delivered professionally, the kind that looked reasonable on paper but felt like a slap in practice. Kate nodded once, made a notation on her clipboard, and returned to her station. Behind her, Cooper's voice carried across the production floor. Not quite low enough to be private. "Does Grandma always worry this much? Maybe she should be checking her own humidity levels." Laughter followed. Not cruel exactly. Just the casual mockery that happened when young men found someone they could feel superior to. Kate had heard worse, had been called worse, had learned to let it roll off because getting angry just confirmed whatever weakness they'd already decided she had. But Thompson heard it too. Kate saw him look up from his communication station, saw his face tighten with disapproval. The Master Chief had been in the game long enough to recognize disrespect when he heard it. Kate wrote her report anyway, documented the readings, referenced the manual sections, created a paper trail that would matter if something went wrong and wouldn't matter at all if nothing did. The morning crept forward with mechanical precision. Kate moved through her assigned duties like a ghost. Check temperature readings, verify serial numbers, review maintenance logs. The kind of work that required attention to detail but not creativity. The kind of work that let her hands shake without consequence. At 0900, she was near the loading dock when the sound of electrical discharge cut through the industrial noise like a knife. Kate's head turned toward the sound before her brain registered what it was. Combat reflexes, the ones that had kept her alive in places where hesitation meant death. The welding station 50 feet away was producing irregular sparks. Not the controlled shower of a proper weld, but chaotic bursts shooting in unpredictable directions. The civilian contractor operating the equipment saw the problem and began emergency shutdown procedures. But electrical systems don't always cooperate with procedures. One final surge sent a burst of sparks across the production floor. Several landed near pallets of ammunition components staged for assembly. Kate moved without thinking. Her body covered the distance before her conscious mind caught up. Her trembling hands found the emergency shutoff panel for the ventilation system and killed the circulation. The industrial fans spun down, and the air movement that had been carrying sparks toward volatile materials died with them. Specialist Cooper was standing next to the ammunition staging area, staring at Kate with an expression that mixed confusion and irritation. "What are you doing? We need ventilation. That's basic safety." Kate's voice came out different than it had all morning. Harder, more certain. The voice of someone who'd made decisions under pressure so many times it had worn grooves in her nervous system. Negative. Moving air propagates combustible particles. In a spark-contaminated environment, ventilation spreads ignition sources to secondary areas. Manual fire suppression on standby. Protocol 12-3, subsection 7. Cooper blinked. "What protocol?" Thompson's voice came from across the room. "She's right. Check the manual. Page 467. Marcus arrived at a run, having seen the commotion from the EOD testing area. He looked at the shut-down ventilation system, at the welding station where the contractor was examining his malfunctioning equipment, at Kate standing by the emergency panel with hands that had stopped shaking. "How did you know to do that?" Kate felt the weight of eyes on her. Everyone had stopped working. Everyone was watching the civilian contractor who just demonstrated knowledge that quality control inspectors weren't supposed to have. "The technical manual covers fire prevention procedures, Sergeant. It seemed appropriate." Marcus walked to the supply station and grabbed the facility manual. 800 pages of regulations that most personnel never read beyond their specific job requirements. He flipped to the index, found the right section, turned to page 467. Protocol 12-3, subsection 7, airflow management in spark exposure scenarios. In the event of unexpected combustible particle dispersal, ventilation systems should be immediately shut down to prevent propagation of ignition sources. Manual fire suppression systems should be placed on standby pending assessment. Marcus read it twice, then looked at Kate with an expression that suggested he was seeing her for the first time. "You memorized emergency procedures for EOD operations?" "I studied the manual, Sergeant. This section isn't part of quality control certification. Most EOD techs don't even know this protocol exists until they need it." Marcus's voice had changed, less dismissive, more cautious. "Where exactly did you learn this?" Kate met his eyes and made a choice. Keep lying and hope he let it go, or tell partial truth and hope that was enough. "I've had opportunities to observe military procedures, Sergeant. I may have picked up more than the average civilian." "What kind of opportunities?" Before Kate could answer, Thompson appeared at her shoulder. The Master Chief's timing was either coincidence or deliberate intervention. Kate suspected the latter. "Sergeant Davidson, the welding station secured and maintenance has been notified. I recommend we resume normal operations once air quality is verified." Marcus hesitated, clearly wanting to pursue his questioning. But Thompson's presence shifted the dynamic. Whatever Marcus thought he'd discovered about Kate could wait. The production schedule couldn't. "Roger that, Chief. Cooper, get me air quality readings before we restart ventilation. Ms. Brennan, good instincts, unorthodox but effective." It should have felt like praise. Instead, it felt like a spotlight that Kate had spent 6 months trying to avoid. She nodded acknowledgement and returned to her inspection duties, feeling the weight of attention following her across the production floor. Thompson caught up with her near the supply station. Spoke quietly, just loud enough for Kate to hear. "That was good work, ma'am. Just following the manual, Chief. The manual's 800 pages. You went straight to the right protocol without hesitation. That's not studying, that's experience." Kate kept walking. Thompson matched her pace. "Master Sergeant, I've been EOD for 25 years. I know what training looks like. That wasn't training. That was someone who's diffused live ordnance under fire." Kate stopped, looked at Thompson directly. Chief, I'd appreciate if we could just focus on the work. Thompson nodded slowly. Of course, ma'am, but you should know something. I lost my son 7 years ago, Corporal James Thompson, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, Helmand Province. Kate felt her throat tighten. I'm sorry for your loss. IED, Iranian design, they said. Triple initiation system. The kind that takes expertise to place and even more expertise to defeat. Thompson's voice was steady, but his eyes held the particular pain of a parent who'd outlived their child. I've spent 7 years wishing I'd taught him more, wishing I'd been there, wishing I could trade places. Chief, even if you'd been there, sometimes it's just bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time, device you didn't see coming. Is that what you tell yourself? The question landed like shrapnel. Kate tried to speak and couldn't. Thompson saw her struggle and mercifully continued. That coin on your lanyard, the memorial coin with the eagle and cross cannons. I've got one too. They only give those out at EOD funerals, for people who've lost teammates in the line of duty. Kate's hand instinctively went to the lanyard around her neck. The challenge coin was there, brass worn smooth by years of handling. She'd gotten it at Jake Morrison's funeral from his widow Emma, who'd pressed it into Kate's palm and whispered thank you for trying to save him, even though they both knew Kate had failed. I bought it at a surplus store, Kate said. The lie tasted like betrayal. No, ma'am, you didn't. I can see the unit designation from here. 759 Ordnance Company, Kandahar 03. That's a real memorial coin from a real service. Someone you knew died, and you were there to receive that coin at their funeral. Kate felt the walls closing in. Every demonstration of competence revealed more of what she was trying to hide. Every reaction peeled back another layer of the carefully constructed civilian identity she'd been maintaining. Chief, please, I just want to do my job. Thompson stood up slowly. I understand, ma'am. Sometimes it's easier to be nobody than to carry the weight of who you were. He moved toward the door, then paused. But ma'am, if you ever need someone who understands what it's like to lose people you couldn't save, I'm here. No judgment, no expectations. Just one veteran who understands another. Then he was gone, leaving Kate alone with her clipboard and the secret that was unraveling faster than she could tie it down. The break. The morning break came at 10:00 hours. 15 minutes for coffee and bathroom breaks and the kind of conversations that built teams or broke them. Kate usually spent breaks alone, but today the break room felt like neutral ground where she might be able to breathe without feeling watched. She was wrong. Thompson was already there when she arrived, sitting at one of the small tables with coffee that looked like motor oil and probably tasted worse. He gestured to the empty seat across from him. Not quite an invitation, not quite an order, something in between that made saying no harder than saying yes. Kate poured her own coffee and sat down. Said nothing, waited to see what Thompson wanted, whether he'd push for answers or respect her silence. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The break room was empty except for them, most of the day shift preferring fresh air to fluorescent lights. Through the window, Kate could see personnel smoking or checking phones or just standing in the North Carolina morning, trying to remember why they'd chosen jobs that involved explosives. My son wanted to be EOD, Thompson said finally. James, he'd always been the kid who took things apart to see how they worked. Clocks, computers, his mother's vacuum cleaner, which she was not happy about. Kate sipped her coffee. Let Thompson talk. Sometimes people needed to tell their stories to someone who'd understand without judgment. He enlisted at 18, made it through infantry training, got his deployment orders. I tried to talk him into EOD school, told him he had the aptitude for it, the temperament, but James wanted combat, wanted to prove himself in the field before specializing. Thompson stared into his coffee like it held images only he could see. He'd been in country 3 weeks when it happened. Routine patrol in Helmand, IED buried under a culvert. Took out the lead vehicle. James was dismounted, providing security. The blast wave threw him 30 feet. Multiple traumatic injuries. They medevaced him out, but he died in the helicopter. Kate knew this story, knew it in her bones because she'd lived variations of it 847 times, the randomness of it, the cruel mathematics of who got hit and who walked away. The impossible burden of trying to find meaning in events that had no meaning beyond chaos and violence, and the particular lottery of war. Emma Morrison is his widow, Kate said without thinking. Jake's widow. She's probably 36 now, works as a nurse, has a daughter who'd be 13, lives in Fayetteville. Thompson's head came up, stared at Kate. How do you know that? Kate realized too late what she'd revealed. I must have heard about it somewhere. No, ma'am. That's not something you heard. That's something you know. Personal knowledge. The kind that comes from being at the funeral, from knowing the family. Thompson leaned forward. Who was Jake Morrison to you? The walls were completely gone now. Kate could either keep lying and insult Thompson's intelligence, or tell the truth and face whatever consequences came with it. He was my partner, Kate said quietly. My EOD partner. 13 years I was in service. 4 deployments. Jake and I did 647 disposals together. He died in Kandahar on November 14th, 2018, clearing a route for a medevac convoy. I was with him when it happened. Thompson absorbed this information with the stillness of someone receiving confirmation of something he'd already suspected. What was his call sign? Nomad. And yours? Kate hesitated. Call signs were personal, sacred. The names you earned in combat that meant more than the ones your parents gave you. Saying it out loud made it real again in ways she'd been trying to forget. Guardian. Thompson nodded slowly. Guardian, because you kept people safe. I tried to, didn't always succeed. No one succeeds always, ma'am. That's not how this works. Kate felt something breaking open in her chest. 6 years of carrying Jake's death alone. 6 years of survivor's guilt that tasted like copper and felt like drowning. 6 years of wondering if she'd cut the wrong wire, made the wrong call, failed the one test that mattered most. He died because of me, Kate said. I should have gone to his device first. Should have disabled the pressure plate before finishing mine. Should have seen the third device that nobody saw. Should have been faster, better, smarter. Should have been the one under that blast instead of Jake, because he had a wife and daughter and I just had a job I was good at. Thompson's hand crossed the table, covered Kate's shaking fingers with his own steady grip. Master Sergeant, I've been in this game long enough to know what survivor's guilt sounds like. You did your job. You made calls under pressure with incomplete information. Jake died because war is chaos and bombs don't care about should have been. He was better than me. Steadier hands, clearer head, better person. And he's dead while I'm here drinking bad coffee and pretending to be someone I'm not. You're here, Thompson said firmly, because you survived. Not because you deserve to more than Jake. Not because you were better or luckier or made all the right choices. You survived because chaos chose you instead of him. And now you get to decide what to do with that survival. Kate pulled her hand back, wiped her eyes before tears could fall. I chose to disappear, chose to be nobody, chose to work a job where the only thing I can hurt is paperwork. But that's not working, is it? Because today you saw sparks and responded like the EOD tech you've always been. Your training kicked in. Your experience saved lives even if nobody realizes it yet. You can't hide from what you are, Master Sergeant. Sooner or later, the warrior comes out. Before Kate could respond, the break room door opened. Marcus Davison stood in the doorway with a tablet in his hand and an expression that said he'd found something that changed everything. Ms. Brennan, Chief Thompson, we need to talk now. Marcus Davidson stood in the doorway of the break room holding a tablet like it was evidence in a trial. His expression had shifted from the confident authority Kate had seen all morning to something else. Uncertainty mixed with suspicion. The look of someone who discovered information that didn't match what his eyes were telling him. Captain Pritchard wants to see both of you in his office, Marcus said. Now. Thompson stood without hesitation. Military bearing kicked in automatically at the tone of command, even from someone lower in rank. Kate followed more slowly, her hands trembling again now that the adrenaline from the ventilation incident had faded. She knew what this was about, had known since Thompson recognized the memorial coin, had known since she'd quoted protocols that civilian contractors weren't supposed to know. The secret was coming apart. The question was how much damage it would do when it finally exploded. Captain James Pritchard's office occupied a corner of Building C's administrative wing. Through reinforced windows, you could see most of the production floor, a commander's view, a position that allowed oversight and control. The kind of office that spoke of responsibility for lives and equipment and missions that couldn't afford failure. Pritchard was behind his desk when they arrived, a personnel file open in front of him. Kate recognized the folder even from across the room. Her file, the one with all the carefully constructed lies about her employment history and the gaps where 8 years of military service should have been. Close the door, Sergeant, Pritchard said to Marcus. Then to Kate and Thompson, sit. They sat. Kate kept her hands folded in her lap to hide the shaking. Thompson sat with the stillness of someone who'd been called into superior officers' offices enough times to know that nothing good came from looking nervous. Pritchard studied Kate for a long moment. Not hostile, not friendly, just analytical in the way of commanders who needed to understand situations before making decisions. Ms. Brennan, I've been reviewing your personnel file. Your security clearance level caught my attention. TS/SCI with special access programs. That's not standard for civilian quality control inspectors. Kate said nothing. What could she say that wouldn't make it worse? So I made some calls, Pritchard continued. Asked around about who authorizes that level of clearance for contractors. Turns out the answer is very few people, very senior people, people with stars on their shoulders. Marcus shifted in his chair. Sir, are you saying someone at a general officer level personally approved Ms. Brennan's clearance? I'm saying Colonel Harrison personally vouched for her, pushed the paperwork through himself. Which raises interesting questions because Colonel Harrison doesn't personally involve himself in contractor hiring unless there's a reason. Pritchard flipped to another page in the file. Your employment record shows 6 years with various defense contractors, administrative positions, low-level work that doesn't match your clearance authorization. Before that, nothing. 8 years where you don't appear in any employment database, tax record, or Social Security payment history. Kate felt Thompson's eyes on her, knew he was putting pieces together, knew Marcus was doing the same. 8 years is a long time to not exist, Ms. Brennan. So I kept digging, found a name match in the Army personnel database. Master Sergeant Catherine Brennan, same Social Security number, same date of birth, served 13 years active duty, medically retired in 2019. MOS 89 Delta. Marcus leaned forward. 89 Delta, that's EOD. Not just EOD, Pritchard said, still watching Kate. This Master Sergeant Brennan had 4 combat deployments. Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice. Distinguished service record. Multiple decorations including a Bronze Star with Valor Device and a Purple Heart. Then she just disappears from the system for 6 months before showing up as a civilian contractor at Fort Bragg. The room was silent except for the ventilation system humming in the background. Kate could feel the weight of revelation pressing down on her. Could feel the civilian identity she'd constructed crumbling like a building with failed supports. Ms. Brennan, Pritchard said quietly, are you Master Sergeant Catherine Brennan, United States Army retired? Kate met his eyes. No point lying now. Yes, sir. Why didn't you disclose your military service when you applied for this position? Because I wanted to work without expectations, sir. Without people seeing the uniform instead of the person. Without the pressure of being someone I can't be anymore. Marcus was staring at her like she'd grown a second head. You're EOD. You've been here 6 months and never said anything? Do you know how much we could have learned from you? Sergeant, Kate said tiredly, I have nerve damage from a blast injury. My hands shake so badly some mornings I can't button my shirt. I came home with PTSD that required 3 years of therapy. I'm a recovered alcoholic who still goes to meetings twice a week. I'm not the soldier I was. I'm just someone trying to contribute in whatever small way I still can. Thompson spoke for the first time. Master Sergeant, with respect, you responded to that welding incident this morning like someone who's made decisions under fire. You cited protocols that most active duty EOD don't know. You may not be the soldier you were, but you're not nobody either. Before Kate could respond, the emergency alarm system activated throughout Building C. Not the fire alarm, not the chemical exposure warning. The other one, the one that meant something catastrophic was developing. All 4 of them were on their feet instantly. Training overrode conversation. Marcus grabbed the radio from Pritchard's desk. Building C operations, this is Sergeant Davidson. What's the emergency? The voice that came back was Specialist Cooper, and he sounded young and scared in ways that made Kate's stomach drop. Sergeant, we have major equipment failure in the welding station. Fire starting to spread toward ammunition staging. I initiated evacuation protocols, but the fire's moving faster than expected. Pritchard was already at his window, looking down at the production floor. Kate could see smoke rising from the southwest corner where the welding station was located. Could see personnel moving toward exits with the controlled urgency that came from good training. Cooper, Status of explosive materials in the staging area, Marcus demanded. Sir, we have approximately 300 pounds of composition C4 waiting for assembly, another 200 pounds of various detonators and initiators. If the fire reaches that staging area before we can evacuate the materials, we're looking at significant blast damage. Kate was already moving toward the door. Pritchard's voice stopped her. Ms. Brennan, where are you going? To help evacuate the explosives, sir. You're a civilian contractor. This is a military emergency. I can't authorize you to enter a hazard area. Kate turned back. Captain, with respect, I'm a master sergeant with 13 years of EOD experience, including 4 combat deployments. Right now, that's more relevant than my contractor status. Pritchard looked at Marcus. Sergeant, your call. Marcus was already pulling on his protective gear. Master Sergeant Brennan, consider yourself temporarily reactivated for emergency response. Let's move. They hit the production floor at a run. The smoke was thicker than it had looked from Pritchard's office, and Kate could see flames spreading along the welding station despite the automatic fire suppression systems trying to contain them. The civilian welding contractor was being helped toward an exit by 2 other workers, leaving the spreading fire unattended. Cooper and Sergeant Lisa Park were at the ammunition staging area, trying to move containers of explosives away from the advancing fire. Their movements were hurried, efficient, but Kate could see the math wasn't working. Too much material, too little time, too much fire moving too fast. Cooper, Park, stop moving containers, Kate called out as she approached. You're not going to get it all out in time. Ma'am, we have to try, Park said, struggling with a container of C4 that weighed close to 40 pounds. If this stuff cooks off, it'll level half the building. Which is why we needed to create a fire break instead of trying to evacuate. We don't have time for option A, so we moved to option B. Marcus arrived with Thompson close behind. Master Sergeant, what's option B? Kate was already scanning the production floor, reading the space the way she'd learned to read combat zones. The fire was spreading along a solvent trail, just like this morning. The staging area was 20 feet from the fire's current position. Between them was open floor with minimal combustible materials. If they could stop the fire's advance, the explosives would be safe. We create a chemical barrier between the fire and the staging area. Use the foam suppression system to lay down a barrier the fire can't cross. Then we focus all fire suppression on containing the current burn rather than protecting the whole floor. The foam system's automatic, Cooper said. It activates based on heat sensors. We can't control where it deploys. Kate looked at Thompson. Chief, can you access manual controls for the foam system? Thompson was already moving. Emergency override panel, east wall. I can manually activate specific zones, but ma'am, the system's designed for automatic deployment. Manual override requires knowing the exact sequencing, or we could make it worse. I know the sequencing, Kate said, because she did. Because she'd trained on these systems in Baghdad when they were protecting ammunition storage from mortar attacks. Because muscle memory from 13 years of service didn't just disappear because you wanted it to. Cooper, Park, keep moving what you can, but don't risk yourselves. Marcus, I need you on fire suppression coordination. Make sure we're not creating toxic gas combinations with the foam. Marcus nodded and moved to coordinate with the firefighting teams that were starting to arrive from other parts of the base. Kate and Thompson reached the emergency override panel simultaneously. The panel was more complex than the ones Kate had trained on, updated with digital controls and safety interlocks that hadn't existed in the older systems. But the underlying logic was the same. Zone selection, deployment sequencing, pressure management, the fundamentals that didn't change even as the technology evolved. Chief, I'm going to call out zones. You activate them and sequence exactly as I say. Timing matters. If we deploy too fast, we waste foam. Too slow, the fire crosses the barrier before it's complete. Thompson's hands were steady on the controls. Ready when you are, Master Sergeant. Kate closed her eyes for 2 seconds. Visualized the production floor layout. Calculated fire spread rate based on what she'd observed. Planned the barrier placement that would use minimum foam for maximum effectiveness. Zone 7, deploy on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Thompson activated Zone 7. Foam erupted from ceiling nozzles, creating a thick white barrier between the fire and the staging area. Zone 9, mark. More foam. The barrier extended, creating an L shape that would channel the fire away from the explosives. Zone 12, mark. The barrier completed. 20 feet of foam 3 feet deep, creating a chemical wall that the fire couldn't easily cross. Kate watched the flames hit the barrier and slow, unable to propagate through the foam layer fast enough to maintain spread. The fire was contained, not extinguished, but isolated from the ammunition. Now it became a matter of putting it out rather than preventing catastrophe. Marcus was on the radio coordinating final suppression. Fort Bragg Fire Department was on scene, professional firefighters in full gear taking over from the building's automatic systems. Water started flowing, foam continued deploying in controlled bursts, and slowly over the course of 10 minutes, the fire died. Kate stood watching, hands shaking worse now than they had all day. Adrenaline crashed, the price of pushing her damaged nervous system beyond what it was supposed to handle. She'd done what needed doing, and now her body was sending the bill. Thompson appeared at her elbow with a bottle of water. "Drink, ma'am. Your hands are shaking." "Always do after," Kate said, accepting the water with both hands to keep from dropping it. "Not always. They were steady while you were calling zones. Steady as I've seen from anyone." Adrenaline overrides the nerve damage temporarily. Once it fades, the damage is worse for a while. Cooper and Park approached, their faces showing the kind of relief that came from having stared at disaster and watched it be averted. Park spoke first. "Master Sergeant, that was incredible. I've never seen anyone manually deploy the foam system like that." "It's all in the training, Sergeant. You learn the systems, you learn when to use them." Marcus joined the group, pulling off his protective gear. His expression was complicated. Respect mixed with something that might have been embarrassment. "Master Sergeant Brennan, I owe you an apology. Several apologies. I dismissed your safety concerns this morning. I made assumptions about your capabilities based on your appearance. I let my team disrespect you. I was wrong on all counts." Kate shook her head. "Sergeant, you had no way of knowing my background. I deliberately hid it. The fault's mine for not being honest from the start." "Maybe, but I should have listened when you flagged the humidity issue. You were right. The environmental system was failing. That failure probably contributed to this fire. If I'd acted on your report this morning, we might have prevented all of this." Before Kate could respond, a tremor ran through the building. Not the shake of equipment or people moving. Something deeper, structural. The kind of vibration that spoke of supports shifting under stress they weren't designed to handle. Kate's head snapped up, looking at the ceiling. "Everyone out, now." "Master Sergeant, the fire's contained," Cooper said. "We should be safe to start cleanup." Another tremor, stronger this time, dust and small debris falling from ceiling tiles. "The fire was hot enough to damage structural supports," Kate said, already moving toward the nearest exit. "We're seeing the beginning of progressive collapse. This building's coming down." Marcus grabbed his radio. "All personnel, emergency evacuation. Building C, structural failure imminent. Exit via nearest emergency egress immediately." People were already moving, training overriding the natural tendency to gather belongings or finish tasks. You don't question when someone calls structural collapse. You move. Kate was halfway to the exit when the third tremor hit. This one wasn't a tremor. It was a violent shake that knocked several people off their feet and sent equipment crashing from tables. Ceiling tiles rained down. Light fixtures swayed dangerously. Then came the sound. The horrible grinding roar of concrete and steel giving way under forces they could no longer resist. Kate had heard that sound before. Baghdad, 2012. A mortar round had hit an ammunition storage building and started a fire. Kate had been evacuating explosives when the roof collapsed. She'd survived that one, barely. The ceiling in the southwest corner, where the fire had burned hottest, gave way. Not all at once, progressively. One section failing, which transferred load to adjacent sections, which failed under the increased stress, creating a cascade that spread across the building like falling dominoes. Kate was running. Everyone was running toward exits that suddenly seemed impossibly far away. Behind them, the building was eating itself. A massive concrete slab fell from the ceiling and landed where the ammunition staging area had been 30 seconds earlier. The impact sent a shockwave through the floor that knocked Kate forward. She caught herself on a support column, held on while the building shook itself apart. Through the dust and chaos, Kate saw Marcus go down. A steel beam, torn from its ceiling mounts by the collapse, crashed down and pinned him across the chest. He was conscious, aware, trying to move and failing. "Marcus!" Cooper was running toward his sergeant, but another piece of ceiling came down between them. Cooper barely got clear, driven back by falling debris. Kate was closer, was already moving, not thinking. Just reacting the way 13 years of walking toward danger instead of away from it had programmed her to react. She reached Marcus's position, dropped to her knees beside him. The beam across his chest was steel I-beam, probably 8 feet long, easily 400 pounds. Too heavy to lift, too well positioned to lever off easily. "Brennan, get out of here," Marcus gasped. "Building's coming down." "I'm aware, Sergeant. Now shut up and let me work." Kate's hands were steady again. Fear overrode nerve damage the same way adrenaline did. Or maybe it was training. Or maybe it was just that when someone needed help, Kate Brennan didn't know how to walk away. She scanned the debris field around them. Needed lever, needed fulcrum, needed cribbing material to support the beam once she lifted it. Needed all of it fast because the ceiling was still collapsing and their window for survival was measured in seconds. A piece of pipe, steel about 5 feet long, solid, that would work as a lever. Chunks of concrete from the collapsed ceiling. Those could serve as fulcrum and cribbing. A smaller beam, relatively intact, backup support. Kate worked with the focused intensity that came from having done similar rescues before. Not in training, in actual combat zones where buildings fell and people got trapped, and you had maybe 5 minutes to get them out before secondary collapse, or fire or enemy action made extraction impossible. "Sergeant, I'm going to lever this beam up. When I do, you're going to slide backward. Not up, not to the side. Straight back about 18 inches. Do you understand?" Marcus nodded, pain tightening his face. "Roger." Kate positioned her lever under the beam, built her fulcrum point with concrete chunks, tested the leverage before committing her weight to it. The physics were simple. Force times distance on one side equals force times distance on the other side. She had distance. She needed force. She threw her full weight onto the lever. The beam shifted. Not much. A few inches, but enough to take pressure off Marcus's chest. "Now, Sergeant, slide back. Don't help, just slide." Marcus slid, slowly, painfully, but he moved. Kate maintained pressure on the lever, feeling her damaged nerves screaming protest at the sustained exertion. Just a few more seconds. Just hold it a few more seconds. Marcus cleared the beam. Kate carefully released the lever, letting the beam down slowly to avoid creating more shockwaves through the unstable structure. "Can you move?" Kate asked. Marcus tested his limbs, wincing but functional. "Yeah, bruised, maybe some broken ribs, but I can move." Another section of ceiling that came down 30 feet away. The collapse was spreading. They had maybe a minute before this entire section of Building C became a tomb. Kate helped Marcus to his feet, looked around for other trapped personnel, saw Cooper trying to reach someone pinned under debris, saw Park unconscious but breathing near what used to be the emergency exit. "Cooper!" Kate shouted over the noise of destruction. "Forget rescue. Grab Park and get out. That's an order." Cooper looked torn between duty to help and duty to obey. Marcus made the call. "Do it, Cooper. Get Park out. We're right behind you." Cooper grabbed Park in a fireman's carry and headed for the nearest intact exit. Kate and Marcus followed, moving as fast as Marcus's injuries allowed. Behind them, more of the building collapsed. The grinding roar was constant now, like the building was screaming as it died. They were 20 feet from the exit when Kate saw Thompson. The Master Chief was pinned under a concrete slab that had fallen from a support column. He was conscious, moving, trying to free himself and failing. Kate diverted towards him without hesitation. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Brennan, we don't have time. The whole building's coming down." "Then we better work fast." She reached Thompson's position and immediately saw the problem. The concrete slab was massive, easily 1,200 pounds. Irregular shape meant no good lever points, and it was positioned across Thompson's legs, which meant even if they could move it, dragging him free might cause spinal injury. "Chief, can you feel your legs?" Kate asked. "Yeah, they hurt like hell, which means nerves are intact." Thompson's face was gray with pain, but his voice was steady. "Master Sergeant, you need to leave me. Get Marcus out. Building won't hold much longer." Kate ignored him, was already examining the concrete slab, looking for fracture points, looking for weak spots where controlled force could break it into manageable pieces. "We're going to have to demo it," Kate said to Marcus. Marcus stared at her. "Demo? Here? Now, with the building collapsing around us? It's the only way. The slab's too heavy to move intact, too irregular to lever off safely. But if we fracture it into pieces, we can remove them without causing spinal injury." "Master Sergeant, I don't have demo charges. We're not equipped for controlled demolition in the middle of a building collapse." Kate was already moving toward the staging area where they'd been evacuating explosives. Most of the material was gone, moved to safe storage. But some items remained, including a demo kit that EOD teams use for training purposes. She grabbed the kit and ran back to Thompson's position. Inside were small, shaped charges, detonators, firing wire. Everything needed for precision demolition work. Everything she'd used hundreds of times before in situations where getting it wrong meant dying. Her hands weren't shaking anymore, weren't trembling, were moving with the surgical precision of someone who'd made these same movements so many times that thinking was slower than doing. She marked the concrete slab with precise points where charges needed to be placed, drew lines showing the fracture pattern she intended to create, positioned charges with exact placement that would split the slab into 4 manageable pieces without creating flying debris that could injure Thompson further. Marcus watched in something like awe. Where did you learn controlled demo technique this advanced? Baghdad, 2013. We used precision charges to bring down unstable buildings before they collapsed on civilians. Kandahar, 2018, same thing. You do it enough times, it becomes second nature. Kate ran the firing wire to a safe distance. Chief, cover your face. Marcus, you too. Charges are small, but concrete fragments can cause injury. She connected the firing device. Fire in the hole. The explosion was precise, controlled, beautiful in the way that perfect technique always was. The concrete slab fractured exactly along the lines Kate had marked, splitting into 4 pieces that could be moved by hand. Marcus and Kate worked together to remove the pieces. Beneath them, Thompson's legs were bruised and bleeding but intact. No obvious breaks, no spinal damage that Kate could see. They got Thompson out from under the debris, got him standing with support, got him moving toward the exit while more of Building C came down around them. They burst through the emergency exit into daylight and clean air, and the blessed relief of open space where ceilings couldn't fall. Fort Bragg Fire Department and medical personnel were waiting, having set up a triage area at safe distance from the collapsing structure. Medics grabbed Thompson and Marcus, started immediate assessment and treatment. Kate stood off to the side, watching Building C continue its progressive collapse. The structure she'd worked in for 6 months was eating itself, concrete and steel folding inward, as support after support failed. Captain Pritchard appeared at her side. Everyone's out. No fatalities. Some injuries, but everyone's alive. Because of you. Kate shook her head. Because of training, sir. Because of good people doing their jobs. I just helped coordinate. Master Sergeant, you extracted 2 trapped personnel using techniques that most EOD specialists never master. You manually deployed fire suppression systems. You conducted controlled demolition in an actively collapsing building. That's not just training. That's expertise earned through combat experience. Before Hayden could respond, she heard her name being called. Not Brennan, not Master Sergeant. Her full name, rank included, in a voice that carried authority and recognition in equal measure. Master Sergeant Catherine Brennan. Kate turned and felt her stomach drop. Colonel Robert Harrison stood 20 feet away in full dress uniform. Behind him were several other officers Kate didn't recognize immediately. This wasn't a casual visit. This was official. This was the moment her secret stopped being a secret. Harrison walked toward her with measured steps. Every eye in the evacuation area was on them. Personnel she'd worked with for 6 months. People who knew her as the civilian contractor with shaking hands who reviewed humidity logs. At ease, Master Sergeant, Harrison said, though Kate hadn't come to attention. Her body did it automatically anyway. Years of conditioning. Harrison looked at the collapsed Building C, then back at Kate. His expression was unreadable. I hear you've had an eventful day. Yes, sir. Captain Pritchard briefed me on the situation. Fire suppression, personnel extraction, controlled demolition under extreme conditions. Textbook EOD work except for the part where it was performed by someone who's supposed to be a civilian contractor. Kate said nothing. What could she say? Harrison turned to address the assembled personnel. I think it's time everyone here learned who they've been working with for the past 6 months. This was it. The moment the walls came completely down. The moment Kate's carefully constructed anonymity exploded like all the IEDs she'd spent 13 years defusing. Harrison's voice carried across the evacuation area, commanding attention the way only a full colonel could. Master Sergeant Catherine Brennan, 13 years of service, 4 combat deployments, 847 confirmed IED disposals, 93 conducted under direct enemy fire, Zero friendly casualties on her watch. Kate felt dozens of pairs of eyes on her. Saw shock on faces. Saw Cooper's expression shift from confusion to understanding. Saw Park realizing the civilian contractor who'd seemed fragile was actually anything but. Until November 14th, 2018, Harrison continued. That day, Master Sergeant Brennan and her partner, Sergeant Jacob Morrison, were tasked with clearing Route Irish in Kandahar province for a medical evacuation convoy carrying 3 critically wounded Marines. Kate closed her eyes. She knew what was coming. Had known since Harrison said Jake's name. This was the story she'd been trying to escape for 6 years. The moment that had broken her in ways blast damage never could. Master Sergeant Brennan and Sergeant Morrison identified 3 improvised explosive devices on the road. They divided the workload. Morrison took 2 devices, Brennan took the most complex one. All 3 devices were successfully neutralized. Harrison paused. The evacuation area was completely silent except for the sound of Building C still settling in the background. What neither of them saw was a 4th device, remote detonated, triggered while they were conducting final safety checks on the route. Sergeant Morrison took the main blast, died on scene. Master Sergeant Brennan was also caught in the blast. Shrapnel to her right arm and shoulder, nerve damage that would end her career. Kate felt tears running down her face, didn't bother wiping them away. After 6 years of holding this in, maybe it was time to let it out. The medevac convoy rolled on the route Master Sergeant Brennan and Sergeant Morrison had cleared. 3 Marines survived because of their work. Lance Corporal David Chen, Corporal Maria Santos, Private First Class John Williams, all alive today because 2 EOD specialists did their job perfectly even though it cost one of them his life and the other her career. Harrison walked closer to Kate, spoke quietly but not so quiet that nearby personnel couldn't hear. Master Sergeant, you received the Bronze Star with Valor device for your actions that day. You also received a medical retirement that you didn't want and survivor's guilt that you didn't deserve. You came to Fort Bragg to disappear, to hide from who you were, to work quietly without expectations or recognition. Yes, sir, Kate managed. But today, when this building caught fire and people were in danger, you didn't hide. You used your training. You saved lives. You were the soldier you've always been, whether you wear the uniform or not. Kate wiped her eyes. Sir, I'm not the soldier I was. I can barely hold a coffee cup steady. I have nightmares that won't stop. I go to AA meetings because the only way I could deal with Jake's death was to try to drink it away. I'm broken in ways that don't heal. Harrison's voice was gentle but firm. Master Sergeant, every person in this evacuation area is broken in some way. Some injuries show, some don't, but broken doesn't mean useless, and it definitely doesn't mean you stop serving. He gestured to Marcus, being treated by medics nearby. Sergeant Davidson is alive because you knew how to perform cribbing rescue. Master Chief Thompson is alive because you knew controlled demolition. This entire group evacuated safely because you knew fire suppression systems and structural collapse patterns. You saved lives today using skills earned through 13 years of honorable service. Kate looked at the assembled personnel, saw respect on faces where there had been dismissal, saw understanding where there had been assumptions, saw acceptance where there had been isolation. Marcus struggled to his feet despite the medic trying to keep him seated, came to attention as well as his injuries allowed, saluted Kate. Master Sergeant Brennan, on behalf of myself and this unit, I apologize for 6 months of disrespect. We saw weakness where we should have seen strength. We saw limitations where we should have seen expertise. We failed to recognize what you offered because we couldn't see past our own assumptions. Cooper and Park joined Marcus, both standing at attention, both showing respect that had been absent all morning. Thompson, being loaded onto a stretcher for transport to medical, called out, Master Sergeant, you're the finest EOD specialist I've served with in 25 years. It's been an honor working beside you, even when you were pretending to be someone else. Kate felt something breaking open in her chest. Not the bad kind of breaking, the kind that let light into dark places that had been sealed off too long. Thank you, Chief. The honor was mine. Harrison pulled a folder from his aide's hands. Master Sergeant Brennan, effective immediately, I'm offering you the position of Chief Safety Advisor for Fort Bragg Ammunition Operations. Military contract with full benefits. You'll consult on safety protocols, train personnel, and provide expertise on explosive handling. No field work required unless you choose to accept it. Kate stared at the folder. at the official offer, at the chance to serve again in capacity that used what she knew without requiring what she could no longer do. Sir, I don't know if I'm ready. No one's ever ready, Master Sergeant. We just do the job anyway. Kate took the folder with shaking hands, opened it, read the official offer, saw her name, rank, the position description, saw the chance to stop hiding and start contributing. I need some time to think about it, sir. Take all the time you need. The offer stands. Harrison turned to leave, then paused. Master Sergeant, one more thing. There's a message waiting for you at headquarters from CENTCOM. They're requesting consultation on IED patterns in Helmand Province. Advisory capacity only, remote analysis. No deployment required. Kate felt ice run through her veins. What kind of patterns, sir? Iranian design. Triple initiation systems. Same signature as the device that killed Sergeant Morrison. The same bombs. Still killing people. Still out there waiting for the next EOD tech who might not be as lucky or skilled as Kate had been. Still taking lives that could be saved if someone with experience helped stop them. They're asking for my expertise. They're asking for the best. That's you, Master Sergeant. Harrison left. The evacuation area slowly resumed normal activity as medics finished treating injuries and personnel began the process of securing the collapsed building and investigating what went wrong. Kate stood alone holding the folder and thinking about Jake, about Emma Morrison who'd lost her father to a bomb design that was still out there, about her own daughter Emily who was pregnant and scared and had called this morning for the first time in 5 years, about what it meant to serve, what it meant to use the skills you'd earned even when using them hurt, what it meant to step forward when others needed you, even when stepping forward meant facing the things you'd been trying to escape. Thompson was right. She couldn't hide from what she was, couldn't pretend to be nobody when people needed somebody with her particular skills. The question was whether she had the strength to stop running from her past and start using it to build something better. Kate's phone buzzed, a text message from Emily. Mom, I've been thinking about what you said, about being there for my baby. I want to try. Can we talk? Really talk? Not just about the past, but about the future. Kate stared at the message through tears that blurred the words. Her daughter wanted to talk, wanted to try, wanted Kate to be part of her life and her baby's life. Everything was changing. The secret was out. The hiding was over. The question was what came next. Kate typed a reply. Yes, sweetheart, let's talk. I'll be there whenever you need me, I promise. She sent the message, put her phone away, looked at the collapsed Building C and the personnel securing the area and the life that was spreading out in front of her like a map of terrain she'd never expected to cross. Marcus approached, one arm wrapped to protect his ribs. Master Sergeant, for what it's worth, I'd be honored to work under your supervision. I've got training, but you've got experience. I could learn a lot from you. We all could. Kate managed a small smile. Sergeant, I'm pretty sure I can learn from you too. That's how good teams work. As the afternoon sun began its descent toward evening, Kate Brennan made a decision. She would accept Harrison's offer, would take the position, would stop hiding from who she'd been and start using it to serve in new ways, would face the demons of Kandahar by helping prevent the next tragedy, would honor Jake's memory by making sure his death meant something more than just pain and loss, would try to be the mother Emily needed, the grandmother her future grandchild deserved, the mentor Marcus and Cooper and the next generation of EOD specialists could learn from, would stop running from the broken parts and start building with what remained. Because sometimes the only way to heal was to serve. Sometimes the only way to honor the dead was to protect the living. And sometimes the bravest thing a warrior could do was admit they were wounded and keep fighting anyway. Kate looked at her trembling hands. They would always shake. The nerve damage was permanent. But today they'd been steady when it mattered, had saved lives when seconds counted, had proven that broken didn't mean useless. She could work with that. 3 days after Building C collapsed, Kate Brennan stood in the parking lot of a coffee shop in Fayetteville, trying to remember how to breathe. Her truck was parked in the back corner, far from other vehicles. Old combat habits. Her phone showed 2:17 in the afternoon. Emily would be here at 2:30, their first face-to-face meeting in 5 years. The first conversation that might actually lead somewhere other than silence and hurt. Kate's hands were shaking worse than usual. Not from nerve damage, from fear. She'd faced down 847 improvised explosive devices, had made life or death decisions under sniper fire, had walked toward danger while everyone else ran away. But the thought of sitting across from her daughter and trying to explain why she'd chosen strangers over family made her hands shake in ways that no bomb ever had. The Bronze Star they had given her for valor sat in a drawer at home. The Purple Heart was there too. All the medals and commendations that said she was brave, she was competent, she was someone who could be counted on when it mattered. None of them made her brave enough for this. A silver Honda pulled into the parking lot at 2:28. Kate recognized it from Facebook photos Emily had posted. Her daughter's car. Her daughter inside, probably as nervous as Kate was. Probably wondering if this was a mistake. Probably already planning her escape if the conversation went wrong. Emily got out of the car slowly. She was 28 now, though she looked older in ways that had nothing to do with physical age. Stress lines around her eyes. Tension in her shoulders. The kind of weariness that came from carrying burdens alone when you should have had help. She was also visibly pregnant, maybe 5 months along based on the curve of her belly, wearing jeans and a loose sweater that couldn't quite hide the life growing inside her. Kate felt something break open in her chest. Her daughter, her grandchild, both right here in front of her after years of absence and silence, and the particular kind of pain that comes from loving someone you've hurt too badly to fix. They stood 20 feet apart in the parking lot, neither quite ready to close the distance. Emily spoke first. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart. You look beautiful." "I look pregnant and tired." "You look like someone who's about to be a mother." "That's always beautiful." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a mom. The only example I have is you, and you were never there." The words should have hurt, would have hurt 3 days ago, but something had changed in Kate when Building C collapsed. When her secret came out and the hiding ended and she realized that pretending to be nobody hadn't made the pain less. It had just made her alone with it. "Then learn from my mistakes," Kate said. "Be there. Show up. Love your child more than any job or duty or mission. Don't let work become more important than the people who need you." "But what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I turn into you?" Kate walked toward her daughter, closed the distance that had been between them for 5 years, stopped just close enough to see the tears on Emily's face and the fear in her eyes that mirrored Kate's own. "Emily, I failed you in every way that mattered. I chose my career over your childhood. I missed everything important because I thought saving strangers would make up for not being there for you. I was wrong, so completely, totally wrong." "Then why did you do it? Why did you keep choosing the Army over me?" Kate had asked herself that question 10,000 times, had tried to find answers in therapy sessions, in AA meetings, in the long nights when the guilt was worse than any physical pain. The truth was complicated, the truth was ugly, but Emily deserved to hear it. "Your father died when you were 3. Cancer. I held his hand and he died anyway. I couldn't save him. Couldn't do anything except watch the person I loved most slip away while I stood there useless." Kate's voice was shaking now. "So I went to war, went to places where I could save people, where my skills mattered, where I could defuse bombs and clear routes and bring soldiers home alive. I thought if I saved enough strangers, it would make up for the one person I couldn't save." "Dad? You were trying to make up for Dad?" "I was trying to prove I wasn't useless, that I could protect people, that I mattered. But the cost was you. I gave you safety, but not presence. I kept you alive, but not loved the way you deserved. I was there in theory, but never in practice. And by the time I realized what I'd lost, you were grown and I was broken, and the distance between us felt too far to cross." Emily was crying openly now. "I thought you didn't love me. I thought the Army was more important. I thought I wasn't enough." Kate pulled her daughter into a hug, felt Emily resist for a moment, then collapse into the embrace like someone who'd been holding themselves together by force of will and could finally let go. "You were always enough," Kate whispered. "I was the one who wasn't enough. I was the one who failed. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sweetheart." They stood in the parking lot holding each other, while 5 years of hurt and anger and loss poured out in tears that had been waiting too long to fall. People walked past, cars came and went, the world kept moving around them. But Kate held her daughter and let her cry and finally started to believe that maybe broken things could be repaired if you were willing to do the work. Eventually, they made it inside the coffee shop, got drinks they didn't really want, sat at a corner table where they could talk without being overheard. Kate's hands were still shaking, but Emily reached across the table and held them steady. Tell me about the baby, Kate said. When are you due? Do you know if it's a boy or a girl? Emily smiled through tears. June 15th, and it's a girl. We're naming her Sarah after David's grandmother. Sarah, Kate felt the weight of that name. Not Catherine, not Kate. Sarah, a name that belonged to someone else's family, someone who'd been there when Kate hadn't. That's a beautiful name, Kate managed. Mom, I want you to be part of her life. I want my daughter to know her grandmother. But I need to know you're going to show up. I can't have you making promises and then disappearing when the army calls. I can't do that to my daughter. Kate looked at her trembling hands, at the damage that 13 years of service had left visible on the outside, at the invisible scars that ran deeper than any shrapnel had reached. Emily, I'm not in the army anymore. I was medically retired 6 years ago. The nerve damage ended my career. But they've offered me a position at Fort Bragg as a civilian advisor, teaching safety protocols, training the next generation, using what I learned without being deployable. Will you take it? I don't know. Part of me wants to serve again, wants to use the skills I earned, wants to honor the people I lost by making sure fewer people die the same way. But part of me is terrified that if I go back to that world, I'll lose you again. I'll choose the mission over you again. I'll prove that I haven't changed at all. Emily squeezed Kate's hands tighter. Mom, you can serve and still be present. You can have a career and still show up for family. It's not either or. It's both. It's about priorities and choices and being willing to say no sometimes even when duty calls. I never learned how to say no. Then learn now. Learn for Sarah. Learn for me. Learn because the best way to honor the people you lost is to be present for the people who are still here. Kate felt tears running down her face again. When had she become someone who cried so easily? The old Kate, the guardian, the master sergeant who defused 847 bombs. She hadn't cried, hadn't let emotion interfere with mission accomplishment, hadn't allowed herself to be weak. But maybe strength wasn't about never crying. Maybe strength was about being honest enough to admit when you were broken and asking for help to put the pieces back together. I want to be there when Sarah's born, Kate said. I want to be the grandmother she deserves. I want to show up for dance recitals and school plays and all the things I missed with you. I want a second chance, even though I don't deserve one. You deserve a chance to be better, Mom. Everyone does. The question is whether you'll take it. They talked for 2 hours about Emily's pregnancy, about her husband David, who Kate had never met, about the life Emily had built without her mother's help, about the past and the future and the difficult space in between where forgiveness lived. When they finally said goodbye in the parking lot, Emily hugged Kate tight. Call me tomorrow, and the day after, and every day. Show me you mean it. I will, I promise. Mom, you've made promises before. I know, but this time I understand what I'm promising. Not just words, action, presence, being the person you and Sarah need me to be. Emily got in her car and drove away. Kate stood watching until the Honda disappeared from sight. Then she sat in her truck and cried until her chest hurt and her throat was raw and all the tears she'd been holding in for years finally ran dry. Her phone buzzed. A message from Colonel Harrison. Master Sergeant, CENTCOM is requesting video conference tomorrow at 0900 regarding Hellman consultation. Your attendance is optional but strongly encouraged. These devices are still killing our people. Your expertise could save lives. Kate stared at the message, at the choice it represented. Keep hiding from her past or use it to prevent future tragedy. Stay safe in anonymity or step back into service that came with pressure and expectations and the weight of knowing people lived or died based on whether she got it right. The old Kate would have said yes immediately, would have put mission first without considering the costs, would have proven Emily right about choosing duty over family. But Kate had promised to be different, had promised to show up, had promised to make Emily and Sarah the priority. She typed a reply. Colonel, I appreciate the opportunity. Request 24 hours to consider before committing. I need to discuss with family first. It was the first time in 13 years of service that Kate had asked for time to consider family before accepting a mission. The first time she'd put someone else's needs ahead of military requirements. The first time she'd practiced saying no, or at least not yes, immediately. Harrison's response came quickly. Granted, take your time, Master Sergeant. The mission will be here when you're ready. Or if you're not ready, we'll find someone else. No pressure either way. Kate drove home to her small apartment, made dinner from a frozen meal that tasted like cardboard, attended her evening AA meeting where she shared about Emily and the baby and the fear of failing again. Went to bed early and dreamed of Kandahar for the first time in weeks. But this time the dream was different. Jake was there, alive, grinning the way he used to when they'd successfully cleared a route. Emma was there too, Jake's daughter, grown now, working as a nurse somewhere. The 3 Marines they'd saved were there, alive because Kate and Jake had done their job even when it cost everything. Kate woke at 0500 covered in sweat but not screaming. The nightmare had shifted, become less about guilt and more about purpose, less about failure and more about the lives saved, less about Jake's death and more about what his death had meant. She made coffee, watched the sunrise through her apartment window, thought about Emily and Sarah and the choice she had to make. Then she called Marcus Davidson. Master Sergeant? Marcus sounded surprised to hear from her at 0530 in the morning. Is everything okay? I need your honest opinion on something, Sergeant. If I take the Chief Safety Advisor position, will my presence interfere with your command? Will the team respect your authority, or will they look to me instead? Silence for a moment. Then Marcus's voice came back thoughtful. Ma'am, honestly, I think having you there would make me a better leader. I've got training but not experience. I know the manuals but not the reality. You could teach me things that no school covers, things that keep people alive. But will your pride let you learn from someone who's technically subordinate to you on the org chart? Marcus laughed. Master Sergeant, my pride died when you extracted me from under that beam, when you conducted demo work in a collapsing building that I couldn't have done on my best day. My ego can handle learning from someone better than me. Hell, my ego needs it. What if I take outside consultation work? CENTCOM is asking me to analyze IED patterns in Afghanistan. Remote work, nothing that would take me away from Fort Bragg, but it might divide my attention. Then we work around your schedule. Ma'am, the opportunity to learn from someone who's defused 847 bombs in combat? I'd wait weeks for that. The whole team would. Kate felt something settle in her chest. Marcus wasn't threatened by her expertise, wasn't resentful of her experience, was actually eager to learn. The next generation wanted the knowledge she'd earned, wanted to be better because of what she could teach them. Sergeant, if I do this, I need you to hold me accountable. I have a tendency to put mission first and people second. I need someone who will tell me when I'm making that mistake again. Roger that, ma'am. I'll be your accountability partner. You make sure I don't get anyone killed through inexperience. I'll make sure you don't sacrifice your family for the job. Deal? Deal. Kate ended the call and made another one. To Emily. Mom, it's not even 6 in the morning. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry, but I wanted to talk to you before I make my decision about the Fort Bragg position. She heard rustling, Emily sitting up in bed. Okay, I'm listening. They've also asked me to consult on IED analysis for CENTCOM, remote work analyzing bomb patterns in Afghanistan. No deployment, no travel, just video conferences and technical analysis. It would use my expertise to help save lives. And you're calling me because you asked me to prioritize family, asked me to show you I'd changed. And I want you to know that if this consultation work interferes with being present for you and Sarah, I'll say no. Your needs come first. The mission comes second. That's my promise. Emily was quiet for a long moment. Mom, I don't want you to stop serving. I just want you to serve in balance. Can you do both? Can you consult for CENTCOM and still be my mom? I don't know, but I want to try, and I want you to tell me if I'm failing, if I'm slipping back into old patterns, if the mission starts taking priority over you. Can you do that? Yeah, Mom, I can do that. And David can help too. He's good at calling out bullshit. Kate laughed, first genuine laugh in longer than she could remember. I look forward to meeting him. Come to dinner tonight. Both of you can start learning how to be family again. I'll be there. What time? 7, and Mom, don't bring anything. Just show up. That's all I need. Just show up. The simplest request, the hardest promise to keep, but Kate was going to try. At 0800, Kate reported to Colonel Harrison's office. He looked up from paperwork with an expression that suggested he already knew what she was going to say. Master Sergeant, you've made a decision? Yes, sir. I'll accept the Chief Safety Advisor position with the condition that I maintain flexibility for family obligations. My daughter's pregnant, due in June. I need to be present for that. Harrison nodded. Granted, this is a civilian contract, not active duty. You set your own schedule within reason. Family comes first. And the CENTCOM consultation? Also granted with the same conditions. Remote work, no deployment required. You analyze the data, provide recommendations, Help our EOD teams identify patterns. But you do it from here, on your terms, with family as priority. Kate felt relief and terror in equal measure. She was saying yes to service, yes to using her skills, yes to honoring Jake's memory by preventing more deaths. But she was also saying yes to balance, yes to boundaries, yes to putting Emily and Sarah first even when duty called. Thank you, sir. Master Sergeant, one more thing. The 3 Marines you and Sergeant Morrison saved in Kandahar, I've been in contact with them. They'd like to thank you personally. Lance Corporal Chen is a father of 2 now. Corporal Santos teaches high school history. Private Williams is in medical school, studying to be an emergency room doctor. 3 lives saved, 6 children between them who exist because you and Morrison did your job. That's legacy, Master Sergeant. That's what service means. Kate felt tears threatening again. Sir, Jake deserved to see that, deserved to know his sacrifice mattered. He knows, Master Sergeant. Wherever good soldiers go when they fall, he knows. And he's proud of you for continuing the mission. The week that followed was a blur of activity and adjustment. Kate moved from her small apartment to a slightly larger one closer to Emily's house. Began the process of setting up her office at Fort Bragg. Started reviewing the IED analysis data CENTCOM had sent over. And most importantly, started showing up. Dinner at Emily and David's house became a weekly tradition. Kate met her son-in-law, a quiet man who worked as a software engineer and clearly loved Emily with the kind of steady devotion that Kate's late husband had shown her. She saw the home Emily had built, the nursery being prepared for Sarah, the life that had continued without her. She also started training Marcus and his team, not in a classroom, not with PowerPoint presentations, but in the field with actual equipment, teaching the lessons that combat had burned into her nervous system. The manual tells you to cut the red wire, Kate said to Cooper during a training exercise. But the manual assumes the bomb maker followed standard design. In the real world, they innovate. They adapt. They know we have manuals, and they build devices that punish people who follow the manual. So how do you know which wire to cut? Cooper asked. You read the device like it's a language. You look for signatures, patterns, the particular style of whoever built it. Iranian devices have different characteristics than Iraqi devices. Professional bomb makers have different tells than amateur ones. You learn to see beyond the manual to the mind of the person who built the device. How long does it take to learn that? Kate looked at her trembling hands. For some people, their whole career. For others, one bad call that they survive and learn from. The key is staying alive long enough to develop the instinct. Marcus joined them at the training device. Master Sergeant, the CENTCOM data you've been analyzing, have you found any patterns yet? Kate had been reviewing the IED reports from Helmand Province for 3 days. 14 incidents over 8 weeks. 9 fatalities. 23 injuries. The devices showed sophistication that worried her. Iranian design with modifications that suggested someone highly skilled was behind them. Someone who'd been building bombs for a long time. Someone who knew how EOD teams thought. Someone who was 3 steps ahead. The pattern is evolution, Kate said. Each device is slightly different from the last. Testing our responses, learning from what works and what doesn't. Whoever's building these is treating it like a chess game. They make a move, we counter, they adapt. It's progressive sophistication. Can it be stopped? Marcus asked. Yes, but it requires understanding their methodology, predicting the next innovation before they implement it. Getting inside their head and staying 1 step ahead instead of 3 steps behind. Can you do that? Kate stared at the training device in front of her, at the wires and circuits and the mock explosive that represented real danger in real places where real people made real mistakes that cost real lives. She'd spent 13 years doing exactly this, reading bomb makers' minds, predicting their moves, staying alive by being smarter than people who wanted to kill her. Could she do it again? Could she face down the same designs that had killed Jake and analyze them clinically? Could she turn personal tragedy into professional expertise without breaking? I can try, Kate said finally. That's all any of us can do. Try and hope it's enough. That evening, Kate video conferenced with the CENTCOM team requesting her consultation. 6 faces on screen, 4 EOD specialists currently deployed in Helmand, 2 intelligence analysts who'd been tracking the bomb maker's signature. They looked young. All of them younger than Kate felt. Young enough to be the children of people she'd served with. Young enough that the wars they were fighting felt like continuation of the wars she'd left. Master Sergeant Brennan, the senior EOD tech, said. His name was Captain Rodriguez, 32 years old according to his file. We've heard about your record, 847 disposals. That's legendary. It's just math, Captain. One device at a time over 13 years. The number sounds impressive until you remember each one was a chance to die. We're facing a bomb maker who's killed 9 of our people in 8 weeks. We need help identifying his signature before he kills more. Your experience with Iranian designs could be the difference. Kate pulled up the file on her laptop, studied the photos, the circuit boards, the wire configurations, the placement patterns, and felt cold recognition settle in her stomach. She knew the signature, had seen it before. Kandahar, 2018. The device that killed Jake had the same characteristics, same wire colors, same circuit board layout, same triggering mechanism. Captain Rodriguez, this bomb maker isn't new. He's been active since at least 2018, probably longer. He uses a signature triple initiation system with redundant triggers and anti-tamper devices. He's been building these devices for years and he's gotten better with each iteration. How do we stop him? Kate closed her eyes and saw Jake's face, heard his voice saying, "Tell Emma her dad tried," felt the weight of his death and the responsibility of preventing the next one. You stop him by understanding that he's not just technically proficient, he's psychologically sophisticated. He builds devices that punish hesitation and reward speed, but he also builds the devices that punish speed and reward patience. He's trying to get inside your head, make you second guess, make you uncertain. So what's the counter? You don't play his game. You build new protocols he hasn't anticipated. You approach his devices with techniques he hasn't planned for. You innovate faster than he adapts, and you never ever assume you've figured him out completely. The conference lasted 2 hours. Kate walked them through every detail she'd observed, every pattern she'd identified, every weakness in the design that could be exploited. By the end, Captain Rodriguez looked like someone who'd just received the tactical advantage he needed. Master Sergeant, this is exactly what we needed. With your analysis, we can train our teams to approach these devices differently. We can save lives. Kate thought about Jake, about the 3 Marines who'd lived because of him, about the EOD techs facing these same devices right now, about the choice between staying safe in her small life or risking emotional stability to serve people she'd never meet. Captain, I'd like to continue consulting on this. Regular updates on new devices, ongoing analysis of pattern evolution, whatever helps keep your people alive. Are you sure, ma'am? This isn't easy work, analyzing devices that killed people you knew. I'm sure, because the alternative is doing nothing while more people die to bombs I might be able to help defeat. Jake died defusing bombs. The least I can do is help others avoid the same fate. After the conference ended, Kate sat in her home office staring at the photos of IED components, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders again. The pressure of knowing that her analysis might save lives or might miss something critical that got someone killed. Her phone rang. Emily, Mom, you sound stressed. What's wrong? Just finished a CENTCOM consultation. Heavy stuff. Brought up some memories I'd rather not deal with. Do you need to talk about it? Kate almost said no, almost defaulted to the old pattern of handling everything alone, then remembered her promise, her commitment to being different. Yeah, actually, I could use someone to talk to. Are you free? David's working late. Come over. I'll make tea and you can tell me about it. Or not tell me, whatever you need. Kate drove to Emily's house, sat in her daughter's kitchen drinking tea that was too hot and probably too sweet. Talked about Jake and Kandahar and the particular burden of analyzing bombs that had killed people she loved. Talked about the fear of failing, the weight of responsibility, the impossible balance between serving others and taking care of herself. Emily listened without judgment, asked questions that showed she was trying to understand, held Kate's trembling hands when the telling became too difficult. Mom, you're doing important work. Work that saves lives, but you can't sacrifice yourself doing it. Jake wouldn't want that. I don't want that. Sarah's going to need a grandmother who's present, not martyred to duty. How do I balance it? How do I serve without losing myself? You set boundaries. You say no sometimes even when duty calls. You remember that saving the world doesn't matter if you destroy yourself doing it, and you let people help you carry the weight. Kate looked at her daughter, 28 years old and wiser than Kate had ever been, strong in ways that had nothing to do with defusing bombs or facing danger. Strong in the ways that actually mattered, the ways Kate was still learning. When did you get so smart? Emily smiled. I had to raise myself while you were saving the world. Turns out being abandoned teaches you resilience. The words should have hurt, would have hurt before, but now they felt like truth spoken with love instead of anger. The kind of honest observation that came from forgiveness instead of resentment. I'm sorry I made you raise yourself. I know you are, Mom, and I'm starting to forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. And Sarah deserves better than a mother consumed by resentment. They talked until midnight about the baby, about David, about Kate's plans for being present, about the careful balance between service and family, about learning to live with past mistakes while building better futures. When Kate finally went home, she felt lighter than she had in years. The guilt was still there, would always be there, but it was no longer crushing, no longer the only thing she felt when she thought about Emily. There was hope now, possibility, the chance that broken relationships could heal if both people were willing to do the work. Over the next 2 months, Kate settled into her new life. Chief Safety Advisor at Fort Bragg, CENTCOM consultant, mother to Emily, soon-to-be grandmother to Sarah. The roles multiplied, but the boundaries held. When Emily needed her, Kate showed up. When Sarah's nursery needed painting, Kate was there with a brush. When David's family came to visit, Kate attended the dinner and tried to be the mother-in-law Emily deserved. And when CENTCOM called with urgent updates about new IED incidents, Kate analyzed the data but set limits. No more than 4 hours per day on consultation work. No taking calls during family time. No sacrificing presence for mission accomplishment. It was harder than any bomb disposal she'd ever done. Saying no went against 13 years of conditioning that said duty came first. But every time she chose family, every time she set a boundary, every time she practiced being different, it got a little easier. Marcus and his team thrived under Kate's training. Cooper became more confident. Park developed intuition that training alone couldn't teach. Marcus himself grew from competent to exceptional, learning to read devices the way Kate did, with both technical knowledge and human understanding. You're good at this, Sergeant, Kate told Marcus after a particularly successful training exercise. Better than I was at your age. I had a better teacher, ma'am. You learn through trial and error in combat. I get to learn from your experience without the risk of dying from mistakes. Don't get cocky. Training is safe. Reality is chaos. The first time you face a real device in a real situation, everything you know will feel insufficient. How did you handle that feeling? Kate thought about her first deployment. Iraq, 2011, 26 years old and terrified despite all her training. Approaching her first live IED with hands that shook from fear instead of nerve damage. Making decisions that would determine whether she came home or was carried home in a box. I remembered that someone trained me, that people believed in me, that I had skills and knowledge and support, and I did the job anyway despite being scared. That's what bravery actually is. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Were you scared every time? Every single time. 847 devices. 847 moments of wondering if this was the one that would kill me. The fear never went away. I just got better at working through it. In April, 2 months before Sarah's due date, Kate received a call from Captain Rodriguez. Master Sergeant, I wanted to update you personally. We identified the bomb maker. Your analysis led us to his signature. We were able to track his material sources and set up interdiction. He's been captured. No more devices from him. Kate felt something loosen in her chest, relief, vindication. The knowledge that her analysis had worked, that lives had been saved because she'd been willing to face her trauma and turn it into tactical advantage. Captain, how many people did we save? Impossible to calculate exactly, ma'am, but intelligence suggests he was planning at least 6 more attacks in the next 2 months. You probably saved dozens of lives, maybe more. Kate thought about Jake, about Emma Morrison who'd lost her father, about the 3 Marines who'd lived, about the EOD techs who wouldn't die now because Kate had done this work. It's not enough to bring Jake back, but it's something. Ma'am, with respect, it's more than something. It's exactly what Sergeant Morrison would have wanted. You honored his sacrifice by preventing others from suffering the same fate. That's the highest form of tribute. After the call ended, Kate sat in her office crying. Not from sadness, from relief, from the feeling that maybe, finally, she'd done something that balanced the scales. That made Jake's death mean something beyond just loss. She called Emily, The bomb maker's been captured, the one whose devices killed Jake. My analysis helped them find him. Mom, that's amazing. You must feel incredible. I feel like I finally did something Jake would be proud of. Like his death accomplished something beyond just pain. Mom, Jake would be proud of you regardless, but I'm glad you can feel that now. I'm glad you're finding peace. The night before Sarah was born, Kate couldn't sleep. Lay in her bed at 1 in the morning thinking about all the ways she'd failed Emily and all the ways she might fail Sarah. Thinking about the responsibility of being a grandmother, the chance to do better the second time around. The weight of knowing this was her last opportunity to prove she'd changed. Her phone rang. Emily, Mom, my water broke. We're heading to the hospital. Can you meet us there? Kate was dressed and in her truck within 5 minutes. Drove through the pre-dawn darkness with her heart pounding and her hands shaking and fear mixing with excitement in equal measure. Emily wanted her there, trusted her to be present for this moment, believed she'd show up. Kate parked in the hospital lot at 1:45. Found Emily and David in labor and delivery at 1:50. Spent the next 14 hours being present in ways she'd never been before, holding Emily's hand through contractions, getting ice chips and warm blankets, being the mother she should have been all along. Sarah Catherine Brennan was born at 3:47 in the afternoon on June 14th. 6 pounds, 4 ounces, healthy lungs that she demonstrated immediately with a cry that made everyone in the room smile. Emily was exhausted and radiant. David was crying and laughing simultaneously, and Kate held her granddaughter for the first time feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Pure, uncomplicated joy. She's perfect, Kate whispered, looking at the tiny face and the small hands and the whole life that stretched out ahead of this child who carried her grandmother's middle name. Mom, her middle name is Catherine. We wanted her to carry part of you forward, the good parts, the strength and courage and determination, without the mistakes. Kate looked up at Emily through tears. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance. You've earned it, Mom. You've shown up. You've been present. You've proven you're different, and Sarah deserves to know the grandmother you've become, not just the mother you were. As Kate held Sarah, she thought about Jake, about the daughter he'd never gotten to see grow up, about Emma Morrison, who was now 20 and in college, and probably still missed her father every day, about the weight of survival and the responsibility it carried. She thought about the 3 Marines who'd lived because Jake died clearing that route, about Captain Rodriguez's team who'd lived because Kate faced her trauma and turned it into expertise, about Marcus and Cooper and Park who were better EOD techs because Kate had been willing to teach them. She thought about Emily forgiving her, about David accepting her, about Sarah sleeping peacefully in her arms with no idea that her grandmother had once been someone who defused bombs and saved lives and failed the people who needed her most. And she thought about the future, about being present for Sarah's life in ways she hadn't been for Emily's, about continuing to consult for CENTCOM and train Fort Bragg personnel while maintaining boundaries that protected family, about balance and service and the hard work of being better than you were. Welcome to the world, Sarah, Kate whispered to her granddaughter. Your grandmother's been a lot of things: soldier, master sergeant, guardian, failure. And now I get to be something new, something better. I get to be present. I get to show up. I get to be the grandmother you deserve. Sarah slept on, oblivious to the promises being made, unaware of the weight her tiny existence had lifted from her grandmother's shoulders, simply existing in the perfect peace of newborn innocence. Emily watched Kate with her daughter. You're good at this, Mom. Natural. I'm terrified I'll mess it up. You will mess up sometimes. Everyone does. But you'll show up. That's what matters. Not perfection. Presence. 3 months after Sarah's birth, Kate stood in front of Fort Bragg's EOD training facility, addressing a room full of new specialists fresh from Eglin. Young faces, eager expressions. The next generation who would walk toward bombs while everyone else ran away. They'll tell you in school that EOD is about technical knowledge, Kate began, about understanding circuits and explosives and render-safe procedures. That's true, but it's not enough. EOD is about decisions under pressure, about reading the mind of someone who wants to kill you, about staying calm when everything in your body is screaming to run, about coming home alive so you can do it again tomorrow. She held up her trembling hands. These hands defused 847 improvised explosive devices over 13 years and 4 deployments. They shake now. Nerve damage from a blast that killed my partner and ended my career. But they were steady when it mattered, steady when lives depended on them. That's what I want you to understand. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be steady when it counts. Cooper raised his hand. Master Sergeant, how do you deal with the fear? How do you approach a device knowing it might kill you? You don't eliminate the fear. You acknowledge it. Use it. Let it sharpen your focus instead of paralyzing you. Fear is your body's way of saying this matters. Pay attention. Listen to that voice. Let it make you careful, but don't let it make you useless. What about when you fail? Another specialist asked. When someone dies despite your best efforts. Kate felt the familiar weight of Jake's death, saw his face, heard his voice, remembered holding him while he died in the Kandahar dust. When you fail, and you will fail eventually because this job doesn't allow perfection, you honor that failure by learning from it, by making sure the next person benefits from what you learned, by turning tragedy into training that saves future lives. You can't bring back the people you lose, but you can make sure they didn't die for nothing. The training session lasted 3 hours. Kate taught them things the manual didn't cover. The human element, the psychological warfare, the weight of responsibility and the cost of service, the lessons earned through experience that couldn't be taught through PowerPoint. Afterward, Marcus approached with his tablet. Master Sergeant, CENTCOM is requesting your analysis on a new IED pattern in Syria. Interested? Kate checked her phone. Sarah had a doctor's appointment at 4. Emily needed help painting the nursery this weekend. David's family was coming for dinner Tuesday. The family obligations that defined her life now. Send me the files. I'll review them during Sarah's nap tomorrow. But if it runs past 4, it waits until evening. Family first. Marcus smiled. Yes, ma'am. Family first. That's the new protocol. Kate drove home to her apartment that was bigger now, but still humble. Made dinner from actual ingredients instead of frozen meals. Video called Emily to check on Sarah. Attended her evening AA meeting where she shared about balance and service and learning to live with past mistakes. That night, she pulled out the box she'd kept hidden for 6 years. Jake's memorial coin. His challenge coin from their unit. A photo of the two of them in Afghanistan, dusty and exhausted and alive. Emma's note from the funeral thanking Kate for trying to save him. She'd been carrying guilt like armor, wearing Jake's death like a punishment she deserved, using survivor's guilt as reason to hide from the world and pretend she was nobody. But maybe honoring Jake meant something different. Maybe it meant using what he taught her, training the next generation, preventing future tragedies, living fully instead of just surviving, being present for the people who needed her instead of martyring herself to the people she'd lost. Kate placed Jake's photo on her desk next to Emily and Sarah's picture. 2 parts of her life, past and future, grief and hope. The soldier she'd been and the grandmother she was becoming. I'm still fighting, brother, she whispered to Jake's photo. Not in the way I used to, not defusing bombs in combat zones, but teaching others, analyzing threats, being present for my family, using what you taught me to honor your memory. I hope that's enough. I hope you'd be proud. The photo didn't answer, but Kate felt something shift inside her. A release, an acceptance. The beginning of peace with decisions she couldn't change and the life she'd been given instead of the one she'd planned. Her phone buzzed. Emily with a photo of Sarah sleeping. The caption read, "Your granddaughter dreams of a grandmother who shows up. Keep being that person, Mom. We love you." Kate smiled, saved the photo, sent back a reply. I love you too, sweetheart. Both of you. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow, the promise of another day, another chance to be present, another opportunity to serve and love and contribute. Another morning waking up not as the person she used to be, but as the person she was becoming. Master Sergeant Kate Brennan, guardian, teacher, mother, grandmother, survivor. Still serving, still fighting, still trying to make her life mean something beyond just the sum of her mistakes. And finally, after 6 years of hiding and guilt and survivor's shame, beginning to believe that maybe she was enough exactly as she was, broken hands and all. The last mission wasn't a single operation, wasn't one more bomb to defuse or one final deployment. The last mission was the rest of her life, learning to live with grace instead of perfection, showing up instead of hiding, honoring the dead by serving the living, being present for people who needed her while maintaining boundaries that protected her soul. It was harder than any bomb she'd ever faced, required more courage than walking toward danger, demanded more strength than she'd needed in combat. But it was worth it. Every difficult conversation, every boundary defended, every moment of presence, every time she chose family over mission or balanced both without sacrificing either. Because in the end, Kate Brennan had learned the most important lesson 13 years of military service had never taught her. True strength wasn't about never breaking. It was about putting yourself back together and serving anyway. It was about admitting weakness and asking for help. It was about being present even when presence was harder than combat. It was about showing up. And Kate Brennan, Master Sergeant retired, Chief Safety Advisor, CENTCOM consultant, mother, grandmother, and survivor, had finally learned how to do exactly that. The end.